Hi, my name is Arianna Giovannini. I work at the University of Huddersfield, and today I'm going to act as an advocate and make the case for regional assemblies. Okay. Right, so my point today basically is that when we talk about English devolution, I think regional assemblies are the most suitable, sustainable, and democratic options to solve the issue. And let me try to explain you why. For a long time, power in the UK has been managed from London. I really wish I had a map of the UK here to show you. So power has been in London for a long time. Then from 1997 onward, what we have seen is that with the inception of devolution, then Westminster has given a little bit of powers to Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales. What do we have? A big hole in the middle. That's what basically means that while Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland can make their own decisions for certain policies, areas, then England cannot do the same. Territorial government in England is still, for the most part, in the hands of the Westminster. So this is what academics and politicians tend to call the English question. How do we accommodate England in the context of a devolving UK in a way that is balanced and sustainable and that does not compromise the wider United Kingdom, so that does not compromise the Union? An English parliament, is that an option? I don't really think so. I think an English parliament is too big and also is imbalanced. If we created an English parliament, that would mean creating a federal UK, but within that federal system, you wouldn't do anything to improve the governance, the territorial governance of England. That would still be centralized somehow. Also, within this new federal UK, England would overpower the other nations of the UK. So there would be a problem for the wider union as well. A local government or combined authority options, I think that doesn't work either. That's too small and too fragmented as well. Local governments and city regions or combined authorities are too small to deal with the big issues, like healthcare, for example. And also, as we can see from what the government is developing at the moment, this is leading to a system of territorial governance that is profoundly uneven. So you will get some bits that got powers, other parts that do not have power. Think about Yorkshire. What is this system going to create in Yorkshire? Some parts, like Sheffield and Leeds, for example, that will get some powers, and other parts of the regions that are completely excluded. Do we want that? Do we want to create a fractured Yorkshire? I don't think that's a very good option. So in my view, regional assemblies are the only options, basically, that allow to create a balanced system of governance across the UK and within England as well. Because this type of regional assemblies are the right size in the first place. They're not too big, they're not too small. You can compare them in terms of size of population to Scotland and Wales, for example. So the union would become more balanced overall. And also this type of governance would also be one that takes into consideration the different needs of the different areas of England. Because Yorkshire is not London, Yorkshire is not the southeast. So it seems logical that basically to have a regional assembly for Yorkshire, because that allows Yorkshire and not Westminster to make decisions that affect the region. So in 1997, Scotland and Wales were given their own assemblies because Westminster recognized that, Westminster recognized their social, political, cultural, and economic distinctiveness. But doesn't the same apply to Yorkshire as well? Yorkshire is not simply a region that is lagging behind in economic terms, as the central government seems often to assume. Yorkshire is a region with its own distinctive identity, culture, history, political values, and I would also add a very strong sense of community and pride. So these things too do matter when we talk about devolution. My point here is that, contrary to what the government seems to believe, devolution and good governance is not just about economic development. Devolution is also about, and above all, solidarity, cohesion, democracy, and identity, as the case of Scotland clearly illustrates. So a regional assembly for Yorkshire with real powers would allow to achieve this, making sure that regional politics reflect the values and the needs of the people in Yorkshire, and that these are not decided by Westminster. So this would bring politics closer to the people. How would a regional assembly work in practice? Well, very briefly, a regional assembly would be like a small parliament for Yorkshire, with a first minister, a cabinet reporting to the assembly. So it would be fully accountable to the people of Yorkshire. It would also be small in size, so it wouldn't be a big new layer of government. And we would also need to have substantial powers in key areas, just like what is happening in Scotland, basically. So it would need to have the ability to pass new law, full control over healthcare, education, planning, and so on. Key policy areas that matters to the people of the region. How would you fund it? Well, it would be funded through a block grant from the government, just like in Scotland. And in terms of power, this is a very important point. Powers would not be taken from the local government. Powers would be taken from the centre. So they would come from Westminster, not from the local authorities. It wouldn't be a process of hollowing out and taking away responsibilities from the local authorities, because they do matter. So in this way, the regional assembly would be a kind of a virtuous level of government in the middle, in between the local level and the central one. So it would basically work to create cohesions, working very closely with the local authorities, so as to create a shared vision for the region, and also making sure that all the voices and needs of the regions are heard and addressed. But at the same time, having a regional assembly would also give a stronger leverage to Yorkshire at the centre, because you would bring together the whole region, and so the central government would have to listen to that kind of political voice. But, and this is another very important point in my view, having a regional assembly would also change the political system. Yesterday I heard so many people saying that they are fed up with politicians because they don't understand the need of the people. Well, if you had an assembly for Yorkshire, that would force politicians to think regionally. It would not be possible anymore to have MPs parachuted in safe seats in Yorkshire. If you want to be elected in a Yorkshire assembly, you have to demonstrate that you have a vision for Yorkshire. Furthermore, this could also lead to the creation of new political parties in Yorkshire and for Yorkshire. And this is something that is happening. For example, Yorkshire First is a regionalist party that is supporting this kind of vision. Yes. So, all in all, a regional assembly would give its own distinctive political voice to Yorkshire and the ability to look after the needs of its people. I'm concluding with a couple of reflections and remarks. You could ask, well, have regional assemblies been tried before in England? My answer is no. What happened in 2004 in the Northeast, well, that wasn't a regional assembly. There was a talking shop with no powers. So of course people didn't vote for that. If you want to know what a regional assembly looks like, then turn and look at Scotland, because that's the example, it's not 2004. Finally, when you think about regional assemblies, try also to look beyond England, because if you try to look across the continent in Europe, you will find out that there are a lot of regional governments out there. And guess what? They do work.
Is that clear for you?
Well, I would like to underline the fact that we keep referring back to the assemblies that were on offer in 2004 and say, well, people didn't want that. I don't think that's a fair assessment. I think people rightly didn't want that because there was no power in that. So that type of assembly would have made no change, and people knew it, and that's why they didn't vote for it. The real issue there was a political one. There was no commitment on the part of the Labour Party that was supposed to support that type of assemblies to actually pass down real competencies to them. So when we hear complaints about, well, regional assemblies, that type of regional assembly didn't work, of course it didn't, because there was nothing on offer. So again, I don't think that's a good example. It's not a positive example to look at.
Okay, I think maybe we'll ask a couple.
I think I agree with Andy that there are profound very profound issues that are related to the current deals. My main concern is that, I'm looking at Yorkshire, my main concern is that it will create such a diverse and fragmented political, cultural, social geography across the region, and an economic one as well. Some parts of the regions, the one that gets the deal, may get on with it and perhaps get something positive out of it, but how about those who are not involved? Do you want to live in a region that is basically divided and fragmented, where people, let's say in Hull, will get less possibilities as compared to those who are living in the areas where a deal has been done? So that is one point. That is a very profound issue in my view. The second point is, I don't think you should get on with it. I really don't. I don't think you should simply accept the fact that, well, this is a done deal, so there's nothing I can do. I think you should actually think bold and look at the alternative, because the change, if it has to come from any kind of direction, well, we know it's not going to come from the current government, so it has to come from the people. And that's why I was trying to make a case for a regional assembly, because I thought that would be something that will bring politics closer to the people and will allow to meet the needs of the people, because a regional assembly, well, that's its work. It will have to look at what Yorkshire needs. One of the points I was trying to make, I think it kind of links with one of the points I was trying to make, that the local level, whether it is just the councils or city regions, that's too small to deal with big issues like the NHS. Why do you think, I mean, that's my view, I'm not speaking for the council, but why do you think they didn't ask for any power over ELF? I think they were scared. I think they didn't have the capacity to do that, and they know it. So this is a clear sign that that level doesn't have the capacity alone to deal with this type of issues. And that's why, again, going back to my original argument, you need that regional level, because then you have the capacity to operate also in these areas.
That's right. Last words, really, last thoughts on this, if you could keep it brief, please.
I think I've been talking enough today, and actually I would like to conclude with a couple of questions to you, rather than, I think you understood pretty much my argument. So there are two things that I would like to ask you. In the first place, I would like you to help me to dispel what I think is a myth. Is it true that people don't want regional assembly? Is it something that doesn't make any sense to you? Because as far as I know, people in Yorkshire have never been asked. So I would like to know, what is your view on that? Is it true what the government argues, that nobody is interested in regional assemblies?
Quick straw poll, hands up those who want a regional assembly. Yeah, you're on a winner.
I always thought so, but thank you for giving me the answer. I kind of suspected this, by talking to people, but clearly politicians don't do that very often nowadays. But so the option should be discussed, because if that's what people want, then it should be taken into consideration. And another question, do you think devolution is just about economic development? Because we've been talking a lot about money, and I'm not saying that is not important. Of course, it is important. But isn't devolution about good governance, ultimately? And isn't good governance linked also to issues of feeling part of a community, sense of identity, sense of belonging to a place, which I think Yorkshire resembles quite well?